So, Patrick, I wanted to make you this quick video to kind of set the foundation for our conversation tomorrow, and kind of set us up for what I want to work on in the off season here and into the start of the new season. Um, I feel like the structure to your backswing has been good now for over a year and a half. Um, I don't think that is the reason why we hit poor golf shots anymore. I think the swing is long enough. I think the structure of your arms, the wrist alignments, the club face, the inclination of your body with the pelvis and the shoulders, the lengthening out of this trail leg, all of that I think is pretty much textbook at this point. The one thing that we continue to kind of work around or struggle to change is the amount of right side bend that you get in the downswing, and it's excessive. And when we look at that, the right side bend shows up and facilitates itself with an incredibly bent right arm at impact. Right shoulder is very, very low to the ground here. And that's one of the reasons why your wrists move the way that they do through the shot pattern. So my goal is to get you to have a higher right shoulder working through the golf shot. And I think that will help stabilize the club face. I think it will help us not be so much on your back foot. It will help eliminate some of the toe strikes and some of the shots where the face is getting pointed to the left at impact. So, and trying to problem solve right side bend, when you think about, what would give you the physical capability of lowering this right shoulder in the downswing. And that move starts with the amount that your trail knee flexes, and more importantly, how fast the trail knee internally rotates. Because there's a domino effect. As the right knee flexes and internally rotates, the right hip drops. And as the right hip drops, the right shoulder drops. So there's kind of a domino effect there. And when we look at your swing over here on the right, coming out of transition, this was the day when we were working on just kind of getting to your left side. So there's a little bit more hip sway or pelvis sway in there than I like to see. But the thing that I want you to pay kind of particular attention to is how fast your right leg, particularly your right knee, rotates internally, so in this direction, in transition. And so I've just kind of put that yellow line there, or that red line there to kind of give you an idea of how fast that thing is internally rotating. And I'll use Snead over here as kind of a comparison. So I want you to watch how your right knee quickly is moving internally away from that red line. And I'm just going to kind of stop you at lead arm parallel to the ground. And versus Snead over here on the right, notice how long his right knee, particularly the outside portion of his right knee, is staying closer to that yellow line. And this view right here really kind of shows the picture of how the knees have kind of splayed out. The right knee has kind of stayed a little bit more external longer. And what that does is it keeps the upper center of your body more well positioned vertically over the lower center of your body. It's when these two centers get out of alignment, or when the lower center shoots too far forward relative to the upper center too fast, that the spine begins to tilt in this direction. So simply put, the faster I rotate this knee in internally, the faster my right hip will drop, and the more this lower center moves out from under the upper center, and it manifests itself in a lot of spine tilt away from the target. So if we bring those on down, you'll begin to see just how close your right knee gets to your left knee as approaching impact. Whereas with Snead, I mean, obviously he's working closer together, but at impact there's dramatically a lot more space. And again, I know he's hitting a driver versus you're hitting a 7-iron here, but the positioning of the right knee is still totally different. And the movement of that right knee out of transition is the key to this whole thing. And so what would that look like? So if you were going to do a front squat with some kind of a weight over the bar, imagine that like she's at the top of the backswing and she's about to start rotating and coming down. I want you to watch the right knee and how the right knee tracks out over the toes. So think of your transition move as literally as this. So, you know, we'd have, if we were rotated, we'd have the left knee, you know, kind of rotated internally like this. And then in transition, as the left knee started to move away, you would see the right knee making that move. And this is a very safe movement when you've got weight on a bar because, again, the upper center is stacked right above the lower center, and there's not going to be any tilting or imbalance with that weight. And eventually, you know, in a golf swing, these things are going to get out of line, but we want to try to preserve that movement with that right knee coming out of transition as long as we can. So I think if we can slow down, we can develop some drills and we can slow down the rate that your right knee, not necessarily flexing, but the rate that it's internally rotating in transition, I feel like the right side of your pelvis won't drop as fast and the right shoulder won't be able to drop as fast, and we won't get so much right side bend in the downswing. And this is validated by the 3D because I went back and I looked at yours and I looked at Max's. You go from basically like 17 degrees of left pelvic tilt at the top. You know, so your pelvis is tilted this way, which is wonderful, what we want to do, to at impact something like 15 degrees of right pelvic tilt. So your pelvis is changing its orientation at an incredibly fast rate. And the other guys were much, much slower than that, and they had a lot less right pelvic tilt, probably about half the amount that you do. And I'm looking at Piercy, Aaron, and Max and Wyndham's data to compare. They all had about half the right pelvic tilt that you do at impact. So again, that right hip dropping, being facilitated by that right knee moving internally, is the one way that we can slow down the right side bend in the downswing and get you a little more stable with your centers in the downswing.